And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And Warner Brothers is trying to sell itself to Netflix, okay? And Paramount is not happy with the situation. I think this is going to be an interesting precursor, bellwether or something, of how the movie industry is changing. So let's dive into this a little bit, okay? Now, full disclosure, okay? I do own a very, very small amount of Warner Brothers Discovery stock, okay? It's like 6 shares, something like that, okay? It's almost nothing, okay? So I'm not trying to hype up any stock prices or anything like this. And the fact that I own it is more of an accident than anything else, which I don't need to get into now. But I think overall, this is a really interesting indicator kind of what's happening with the movie industry in general, okay? So let's again back up just a little bit. Warner Brothers Discovery has been trying to sell itself for a while. And Netflix was like, "Yep, here I am. Sell to me." Okay. Now, my understanding, okay, and I'm not a financial expert. This was just I've been breezing through the headlines, read through a bunch of stock stuff that they sent me because, as I said, I do own a very small amount of Warner Brothers Discovery stock. But my understanding is that the sale does not include the Discovery portion of Warner Brothers Discovery, which includes things like the Discovery Channel and CNN and all of those like cable channels. It's like all of that isn't going, is my understanding of what Netflix is buying. I think Paramount is trying to come in and wanting to buy the whole thing, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. All of this, I get lost in the weeds of the back and forth and stuff, okay? But what I want to focus on is the Warner Brothers of it all, okay? Because Warner Brothers has been, for decades, this huge movie-making machine, okay? And, you can go back years, from when they were looking at originally when there was the Bugs Bunny stuff, of course, but so many movies you can go back and see the Warner Brothers logo on. And Warner Brothers owns DC, right? So if you're into Superman and Batman and all of that stuff, yeah, that's them. Now, sorry, there is a little bit of a perverse side of this. Warner Brothers also owns HBO, which owns Sesame Street. And they canceled Sesame Street and Netflix bought it. And if Netflix were then to also then go back and buy Warner Brothers, it's like, well, sorry, you tried to get rid of Sesame Street and it's back again. Good luck. No, but this isn't about Sesame Street, but that just gives me a weird tickle inside. I blame Elmo. Anyway, so here's the way I'm seeing this. All right. Warner Brothers has been putting out movies forever and is still trying to put out movies. And they're pretty good at it, okay? They've had a lot of practice. Like any movie studio, not everything hits, but, they're pretty good, except for those times when they make a movie, have it fully ready to release, and then just cancel it for tax reasons, okay? I don't know what the tax reasons actually are, but there's something weird with Batgirl, okay? I have no idea what's going on with that. Maybe it'll get released by Netflix or Paramount, whoever buys them, okay? But Paramount is kind of the same thing as Warner Brothers, all right? From a high-level standpoint, Paramount is just another movie studio. Okay. Now, yes, they do own a bunch of TV stuff, right? They own Star Trek, and they've been putting out Star Trek stuff and some other things that have been on Paramount Plus. But for the most part, Paramount is just another movie studio. And this is why I think, one, they would be an interesting match, but Paramount buying Warner Brothers in a lot of ways is more of the same. It's okay, we're buying the studio, we're going to make movies, we're going to put them in theaters, and we're just going to keep that train rolling, okay? Netflix, on the other hand, is a different beast, okay? Yes, Netflix makes a lot of movies, and they make a lot of TV shows. Very few of them ever see a theater, Okay. Now, some of them do because apparently to get into the discussion for Oscars and things like that, you have to be shown in a certain number of theaters. And sometimes Netflix puts out Oscar bait and they want that consideration, so they do the thing. But Netflix, their focus is not theaters. Okay? And so, look, there are a handful of things here I think that Netflix is getting that is sort of interesting. One, Netflix is getting all of Warner Brothers' library of movies, which is extensive, right? It goes back for a while. And this is huge for Netflix because as a streamer, right, they are a streaming company first, unlike something like Disney Plus or Paramount Plus, which is sort of an add-on to the movie making machines that are Disney or Paramount. Netflix is content first. The more content they have on their platform, the stickier they are, and the easier it is for them to keep people ponying up every month for Netflix subscriptions. Okay, right? And sure, they try to do good things by making good shows. Okay, I hear Stranger Things was really good. I don't have Netflix. I didn't watch it, and it's a horror show, which is not my jam anyway. So, again, didn't watch it, but lots of people did, and that brought in lots of people to Netflix. Okay. So getting Warner Brothers' library is obviously huge for that. It's half the reason Disney bought Fox, not so much for the Fox's library as much as it was for the rights that Fox had to different properties. For example, Marvel characters, right? X-Men and all of that stuff. Okay. But all of that Fox stuff is showing up on Disney Plus. So, again, content is king when it comes to being a streamer. If you don't have content, people stop watching. The focus of Netflix is on movies, but on streaming. I guess on TV shows as well, but it's all on streaming. Their movie focus has always been on streaming because that's what they are. There's been some concern that Netflix, if they buy Warner Brothers, will stop releasing those movies in theaters. I don't think that's the case, okay? And Netflix has said they're not going to stop releasing movies in theaters. And honestly, I think they would be foolish to change that, okay? Because you look at something like Superman, okay? Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, okay? So I'm going to make them up. These are completely made up numbers, but we'll use Superman as a placeholder for big movie, okay? Big, massive blockbuster movie, okay? If it costs $300 million to make Superman, okay? Plus some marketing and stuff. So call it, $500 million to make this movie and release it. And that's probably a little high. Or, well, it used to be high. Maybe it's not now. But if it goes and makes $1 billion, you're still clearing, $500 million that can go back and to do other things. If you spend that same amount on making giant blockbuster Superman or whatever, and just dropping it on Netflix, you are not going to make that extra 500 mil, okay? It's not going to happen. Yes, you'll get more subscribers and stuff for a while, but streamer churn is a thing, right? I was just talking to my wife about this the other day, and she says, yeah, I totally understand the people that sign up for Netflix for a month or two, binge all the things they haven't seen in the last year, cancel, and move on to Paramount Plus and watch that for the next couple of months to catch up on things, right? That's the thing, right? Streamers hate this, but there are a lot of people that do it, right? Well, if you are just dropping the big blockbuster, right? Okay, Superman comes out and it's just on Netflix. Yeah, everybody's going to sign up for Netflix for a month. Now, will that be enough to make up the difference in lost ticket sales and stuff at a movie theater? I don't think so. Now, to be fair, I don't know the economics of streaming, okay? But it's I definitely think they're going to be losing some money. So for the big blockbusters, okay, the huge titles, Superman, Batman, right? All of the superhero movies. I don't know what else Warner Brothers has been doing right off the top of my head. But all of those blockbusters that they've been putting out, those are almost certainly still going to theaters because that's the fastest way to get your money back. Okay, streaming you may get it back, but it's a slower churn. Okay, streamers, it makes more sense to make a smaller budget movie, and that could be a good thing. Okay, and we'll get to that in a minute. But with all of that, Netflix still, their core business is getting people to streaming. Now look at the lifetime of a movie in theaters. What is it? It's like a month, maybe 2, if the movie really has legs. Okay, and I don't think there have been many that have done that. Right? There have been a few in my lifetime, which admittedly is long, but yeah, something like Titanic. Right? Titanic, very few people saw Titanic in theaters when it first came out, but it had this long tail. It just gained momentum over months and months and months, okay? That's not really what's happening to movies anymore. You might get 2 weeks, really, of real productive audience, and then it drops down, right? They talk about if your box office drops 50% from the week of release to your second week, that's not fabulous, but it's not unusual. It's fairly normal. Okay, if you only drop like 25%, that's fabulous. Okay, the lifetime of a movie in theaters is not long. So what happens after it dies? Well, the sooner you can get it on your streaming platform, the more people will see it and start watching it again. That's probably true. Yeah. Of course, the shorter that release window is, the more people may just decide, you know what, I'm not going to go see it in theaters. And I'll just wait for it to drop on streaming. Okay. Which then hurts that initial box office, right? Now, we'll get into the theater experience in a minute because I have thoughts, okay? I have thoughts on theaters. And I think it's going to be relevant here, all right? But Netflix, well, actually, let's get into theaters now because I think this is I want to talk about some of the lower budget movies, and I need to set some context here, okay? There's a reality in the cinema world, okay, that fewer people are going to theaters, okay? Fewer people are seeing movies in theaters, right? The age of the Marvel movies, right? Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, that period between 2012 and really when the pandemic hit in 2020 was a golden age for moviegoers. Streaming hadn't quite spun up yet. I mean, it was there, right? Let's not be silly, but people were still going to the theaters, right? Every Marvel movie that came out was making $1 billion, right? They were just printing money, right? Which was great. And the movies were great, and people were going to see them multiple times, which means multiple ticket sales, which means lots of money, okay? Great. Post-pandemic, well, I mean, obviously it died during the pandemic, but even afterwards, people kind of aren't going back to theaters. Now, some of that is the fact that the release windows are shorter, right? Now, let me use myself as an example, okay? Now, is the plural of anecdote data? Okay, so here's my example. I hate going to movie theaters. I used to like going, okay? I loved seeing Lord of the Rings in the theaters, right? Big screen, big sound. Oh, it was awesome, right? Star Wars, man, I went and saw all of the prequel movies in the theaters. It was amazing. I went to see Spider-Man No Way Home in the theaters and hated every minute of it. Okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. I only hated like a third of the minutes of it because the movie itself was great. I loved the movie, the big screen, big sound, all of that was there. But so is the big obnoxious crowd, okay? And it's not that there were a lot of people in the theater. That wasn't a problem. It's that they chose to cheer like it was the Super Bowl or something, anytime a new actor came on screen, anytime they said something that might have been relatively meme worthy, or because of the nature of No Way Home, some callback to another movie, right? It's like, dude, shut up. I just want to watch the movie. Okay. I don't want to sit here and listen to you people cheer because Tobey Maguire has turned around. Okay. I don't need to listen to all of you cheer because there's Norman Osborn again, who is something of a scientist himself, right? I don't need that, right? I can't stand that type of experience. And then when you look at what was going on with a Minecraft movie where people were bringing live chickens in and shouting all the memeable stuff at the movie, I don't want to deal with that garbage, okay? The theater experience, for me, sucks, okay? I do not want to spend 10, 12, 20 bucks, whatever, to go to a movie to deal with that nonsense, okay? So having a shorter release window is great for me. So no, when Mandalorian Grogu comes out, I am dying to see this movie. And I'm going to be dying for an extra 2 months until it drops on Disney Plus. Okay. That's just the reality of it. I am not going to go see it in theaters because I can't stand the theater experience. Okay. Now, all of that said, let's talk about the smaller movies. Okay. Because the blockbusters are going to make money hand over fist, right? They are, right? If they're any good, okay, if they're fun, whatever, they're going to make money. If they're bad, they're going to bomb hard, okay? We saw this with Morbius. We saw this with Madame Web, which I had no desire to see Morbius. I might eventually watch Madame Web one of these days, but whatever, okay. But what about those movies that aren't blockbusters, okay? And this is a genre that's been dying for years, right? And what I'm talking about is sort of those mid-tier comedies, right? Some of those rom-coms in some ways too, right? Because these are the ones that they don't cost a whole lot to make, but people are not going to see them in the theaters, okay? Yes, there will be people who will see them, but not in the same sort of numbers that justifies the costs. Especially when you start dialing up the marketing, right? Because one of the things, it's sort of the general rule of thumb, however much it costs to make a movie, you're going to double that in marketing, okay? And you might have to spend more than that if your budget's relatively low, right? Which is the great thing about comedies and rom-coms and dramas and stuff, is often you can make them for certainly less money than you're spending on Batman or Star Wars or something, right? But there's no urgency, right? The fact that you're at a big screen with big sound and big energy doesn't make a lot of difference if you're sitting there watching a quiet drama. Or, heck, even a comedy. I mean, comedies, at least, you have the benefit of a shared energy, right? There's a reason why watching a stand-up at a live event with a crowd is so much more fun than watching that same exact show on your TV alone in your living room, okay? That energy is infectious, okay, which is great, right? I love live comedy. I don't get to see it, but it's awesome, okay? I live in the middle of nowhere. Live comedy is not so much a thing here. But and it's the same if you're going to sit down and watch some comedic movie, it is kind of cool to sit in a theater and watch it. But the reality is you're spending more and more money to go see the movie because ticket prices are insane and the food prices at a theater are even worse. If I'm going to spend that much money to see a movie, I want to go see it where the venue makes a difference, right? This is why I think you're seeing so much push for IMAX. Is like, here's something you can't get at home, right? But if I go to a theater and I'm watching Lord of the Rings, yes, seeing the ride of the Rohirrim as they ride down the Pelennor to rescue Gondor, yeah, that charge is just amazing, right? With all the sound, and oh yeah, yes, amazing stuff, right? If I'm going to watch something quiet, or something that doesn't really benefit from all of that, why am I going to a theater? Okay, so let's talk about Netflix again. Netflix and streamers in general, but Netflix in particular has made their money on getting people to watch movies and watch them at home. And they make their money because people are coming to watch the new movies that are coming out. And they've been able to make some of those, I guess, smaller budget films. And they've just not been putting them in theaters. They've just been going straight to Netflix. Now, some of those movies are garbage. Okay. They are legally movies. They'll fill space, right? It's like those late night shows, right, or something they're on it at 2 a.m. on channel 47. For those that you remember that TVs used to have channels. That nobody's going to watch any other time. They just need to fill air, right? Netflix definitely has a bunch of those as well. So do most streamers, right? Not every movie that comes out of Disney was a good one, okay? The same is true of Paramount, same is true of Warner Brothers, same is true of Sony, right? Looking at you, every bad movie ever. But people are not going to see those sort of mid-tier movies. Heck, I'm not entirely sure how much they're even going to see the lower tier. And I'm not talking about quality, I'm talking about cost, okay? Well, the more people who are coming into Netflix to subscribe because they're watching Superman or whatever, that money can get rolled to help make some of those smaller movies. And that might actually mean more movies. And that's a good thing in general, okay? Now, does that mean more movies in theaters? No, I don't think it does, because there's a certain reality there. But the movie audience has changed, and I think this is why Netflix buying Warner Brothers is so interesting, okay? Paramount buying Warner Brothers is more of the same, okay? But let me give you another example to show why things are different, okay? People are not watching cable so much, okay? Now, I know cable versus movies, totally different. No. I mean, yes, they are different, okay? Sitting at your home in your underwear watching Court TV is a lot different than sitting in a movie theater in your underwear, because you'll get escorted out of the theater. But no, sitting in a theater is definitely an experience, while sitting home and watching cable is not so much. But they're both part of a long history of content creation and distribution that has been completely blown up by the internet. So here's the example. I just heard the other day that the Law and Crime YouTube channel recently bought Court TV, which is why Court TV was on my mind. Think about this. Court TV has been a staple of cable channels, cable packages forever, right? It's live broadcasts from major courtroom drama events, right? Think OJ, think Lori Vallow, right? All those types of things, right? That's Court TV has been those people who are true crime fans and want to actually watch the court action as it happens. Law and Crime YouTube channel is more documentaries and things, some commentary on cases, less of the live stuff, okay? But there is a reality there that people are watching more of their stuff on YouTube than they are watching on TV. Heck, it's gotten to a point where more people are watching YouTube on TV, on their TVs, right? I mean, YouTube is making this big push, right? To all of their creators. Hey, your stuff is going to be on TV. Here's what you need to do to make your stuff work better on a TV, right? Okay. It's interesting, right? And I think there's a reality. Fewer people are watching linear television, right? But they are watching YouTube, and they're watching TikTok, and they're watching Reels and that type of thing. But they're watching, heck, they're even watching movies, right? They're watching movies, they're watching TV shows. They're not doing it on linear TV. They're going to streamers, or they're going to YouTube, which really is, I think, the biggest streamer of them all, right? So how does all of this center on what's happening with Warner Brothers. The reality is that people aren't going to the theaters. They're happy to sit and watch these things at home. And the idea that here's Netflix, right? And yeah, they built their name on shipping DVDs through the mail, right? And then setting up their streaming platform, which was great. And now they're buying the old guard, right? Warner Brothers is about as old as you get. They've been around forever, right? You can go back to movies, decades, 40s, 50s, something like that, and Warner Brothers has been there making movies. They're the dinosaur, right? They are the old model that is dying, right? And they've certainly tried, right? They tried to turn HBO into HBO Plus and Max and HBO Max and I don't know, whatever they're at now. What's in a name, right? They've tried making streaming work, and honestly, I don't think they knew how. Because their focus wasn't on a streaming platform. Their focus was on getting movies into theaters and trying to get an ever-shrinking audience into the theaters, and it's just not working. Okay, yes, Superman made bank, okay? They made a lot of money, but it was a good movie, right? And if you want to go see my really late movie review of that, it's here on the YouTube channel. Or it's on Spotify too, if you want that sort of thing. But it is a vastly different model. And I think that's what we're seeing here with this change of, and maybe as I try to get my train of thought back on the rails here, it might be why Netflix buying Warner Brothers is the most interesting, okay? No matter which way this goes, right? I think that Netflix buying Warner Brothers is going to be the most interesting because I think we might see really maybe an acceleration of the fact that the theater chains are dying, right? Now, remember the meme stock when everyone was buying GameStop for some stupid reason to pump and dump the stock, right? They did the same thing with AMC Theaters, okay? But why was AMC Theaters a meme? It's because it was dying, right? Again, they've had to raise ticket prices up so much that it's like, why bother? Right? Heck, it's almost gotten to the point that if you're going to see a movie with more than one person, you could buy the thing on Blu-ray when it comes out, right? And actually just have the disc and watch it whenever you want to, and you're spending less, right? And for people who are more cost conscious, that's a thing, right? You know, now admittedly, I had a large family, but I couldn't afford to take my kids out to the theaters very often, right? I think I took a few of them to see one of the Harry Potter movies when it came out, but it's just not financially viable for more and more people. And I think what's going to happen with the movie industry is the idea of a mainstream movie audience, or the idea that most people are going to go see a movie in theater, I think that's going to fade. At least for everything except your major blockbusters, right? Because that's the only thing that's worth seeing in a theater. Okay. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who would argue with me, every movie is worth seeing in a theater. Okay, maybe that's true. Okay. Maybe the experience of seeing a movie in a theater is worth being in a theater to see it. I might even agree with you. But it's not worth the expense to see that for most movies. Okay, I would argue that if it's not one of those big explosive, something that really benefits from the size and the sound of being in a theater, it's not worth the cost. Okay. Now, if you're into that, awesome. awesome. I am not going to project my values onto you necessarily, right? If you like it, that's great. But I think what we've just been seeing as a whole is that's sort of been fading. As more and more people are sort of happy just to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it on their schedule. And the theater experience isn't that. So as Netflix moves closer, and who knows how this is going to go. I just got my paperwork to actually vote on the sale to Netflix the other day. Again, I own like 6 shares of Warner Brothers Discovery stock. Okay. Because I inherited AT&T stock. AT&T used to own Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers split off. I ended up with a handful of shares of Warner Brothers stock. Yippee skippy. Boy, that was more pain than it needed to be. Anyway, but as Netflix has said, yes, we're still committed to releasing movies in theaters. But I think Netflix is also committed to shortening that release window. Because, yeah, it is totally worth it if you want to spend the money and watch the Rohirrim ride down into Gondor on the giant screen and all that. That's absolutely a thing. IMAX may be even more of a thing, right? As you get an experience you can't really get at home. Because the home theater is so much easier to set up now, right? If you want a big screen with surround sound, that's actually fairly reasonable to do. Okay, yeah, it's a kind of expensive, but not like ridiculously expensive like it used to be. And you can get, Walmart is selling like 1,000-inch TVs for fairly cheap. So again, as a matter of perspective, I grew up in an age when a 12-inch screen was kind of big. 20-inch screen was huge. I have 3 24-inch screens right in front of me right now. So yeah, this is the idea of sitting at home and watching a movie is, I think, much more palatable to people these days. And I think Netflix, if they succeed in buying Warner Brothers, I think it is really, really the big push, okay? And you're seeing it with like Amazon, because Amazon's been putting out some pretty big, and apparently some pretty good stuff. And yeah, some of it's going into theaters, but it really feels like it's an afterthought. It's going into theaters because, yeah, they'll make a lot of money in the theater, but the focus is let's get it back on our streaming platform and get people subscribed to Amazon Prime to watch our movies. Okay. And I think it's going to be the same way with Netflix. And I think it's going to be the same way for more and more and more movies is, yes, we're going to drop it in theaters to try to get that quick coin. But it's the long tail of content that is eventually going to be really what drives a lot of the finances for some of these movies. And some of these movie makers, right? So yeah, I don't know. Whichever way the vote ends up going, and I think it's going to be really, I think it really is a bellwether of how the movie industry is changing. Okay? Because we've already watched streaming. Heck, we watched DVRs at the beginning, but streaming sort of killed off linear TV. Yes, it's still there, but so few people watch it. Right? Yeah, there's still people watching it, but you talk to, I keep contradicting myself, right? It's people's grandmothers are still watching it, right? Their parents are still watching it. My generation, my kids, right? And frankly, I'm old enough that even the youngest generation, they're not turning on Saturday morning to get cartoons. They're turning on Netflix or they're turning on Disney Plus to watch cartoons. Right? Because there's this whole library of great stuff out there, right? The Disney afternoon that I grew up watching, that was Gummy Bears and DuckTales and Darkwing Duck and Tailspin, right? Yeah, that's all at Disney Plus. And those shows are still good, right? So, yeah, there's it's a change, and as people are looking at how do I want to spend my money, the theater experience is not where they're choosing to spend it, at least as often as they used to. So yeah, it's a change, and I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch as it goes forward. It's going to be slow because let's face it, these movies do make a lot of money in the theaters, and there's a little bit of a concern I have that, okay, the theaters are going to go out of business, and especially like smaller theaters. Like, I live in the middle of nowhere, right? We have one theater, with 6 screens, right? We're certainly not seeing the variety of movies down here. Now, on the other side, the audience here sucks, so I'm not seeing movies here at all. But I can see, okay, there are fewer movies coming out. Are there enough movies for this theater to stay open? Maybe. And we may start seeing more and more theaters go the route of something like Alamo Drafthouse, where, yes, you've got the movie, but it's also dining and other things, right? It's more of an experience than just sitting there in an auditorium. So I don't know, but I think the traditional movie experience is going to fade. It's going to continue to fade to a point. And the fact that Netflix can buy Warner Brothers shows that this is definitely going to be a thing. So let me know what you think. Drop a comment here, YouTube or on Spotify. Let me know, because I'm really curious to see what your experience is with movies and things like that. And am I way off base here? I mean, it certainly could be, but yeah, let me know. And while you're down there leaving a comment, like, subscribe, follow, whatever your platform of choice does. Of course, you can get the podcast on YouTube at Music Free Static, or everywhere podcasts are. so check that out. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.